So first of all, a huge congratulations to the Irish for beating New Zealand for the first time in New Zealand. They say the team who beats New Zealand a year or so from the Rugby World Cup ends up winning the Rugby World Cup. Case in point, Australia. In 1990, they beat New Zealand in Wellington. Australia went on to win the 1991 World Cup. England, Clive Woodward, he came down to New Zealand, he beat New Zealand in New Zealand, and we all know England went to go win the 2003 Rugby World Cup. The Springboks in 2018, they went to New Zealand, they beat New Zealand in Wellington, and we all know the Springboks won the 2019 Rugby World Cup. So there's some sort of trend going on there, and Ireland, they managed to achieve their first victory in New Zealand a year out from the next Rugby World Cup. So I just want to dwell within this game of which Ireland won. I want to cover Ireland quickly first. So the MVP, in my opinion, is Johnny Sexton. I know Andrew Porter scored two lovely made tries, but to me today's game, it symbolizes again the importance of Johnny Sexton within this Ireland team. Now, I was one of the first people last week that said that the second test against New Zealand would be a very good opportunity to blood Joey Carbery, to give him some exposure experience in a very highly intense environment, to give him a run so that they can invest in Carbery for the future. So I still feel that Ireland, they're a little bit too reliant on Johnny Sexton, but once again the man is shone through. But Johnny Sexton, it might bite him later on, perhaps in the next World Cup, because with Sexton it's like someone opting for a short-term pleasure rather than going for a sustainable long-term gains. But Sexton, he was brilliant today. I think that he pulled all the strings. He was my MVP, and good for Ireland, good for Johnny Sexton. I also think that Ireland, they were very efficient on attack as always. For those who follows Leinster and the URC would obviously know that the Irish, especially Leinster, they are very efficient on attack. Once they hit you in your 22 meter, the chances are that they're going to score is very big. And Ireland, they proved it once again. Once they got into New Zealand's 22 meter area, you could easily see and sense that Ireland's going to score points here. So they are very efficient by doing that. Like I previously said, Andrew Porter, he took his tries beautifully. Two very good tries. It was scored by Andrew Porter. A show of power, a show of determination. So Ireland is not particularly a team with, household name superstars internationally. Maybe for the Irish supporters and fans, they will see their players as being their superstars, but internationally, to be honest, the Ireland team is not full of those type of guys that are household name superstars. However, they play within a very efficient and good system, and that system is evident obviously in the premier provincial team Leinster, and it shows through. With the system, there's always ways to crack and to expose and decoder a system. So I would see working mainly in a system could also be a very negative thing. It's a very good thing, but can also be exploited. And teams are now seeing what Ireland can do, and I bet for the World Cup, teams might use that particular what's happening now against Ireland, unless they can somehow tweak it and reinvent themselves a little bit to tweak things. But I think overall, you guys, Irish supporters, you should be very proud of your team. It was a good game, and it sets up the whole series nicely for the decider next week. Let me discuss New Zealand. New Zealand. So New Zealand, their ill discipline caused them to cop up 2 yellow cards as well as 1 red card. Now I believe that even if Ireland played against 15 men against New Zealand, they still would have won the game. Many people will say Ireland won because they were playing an All Black team that was like for 50 minutes with 14 men. Bearing in mind, Ireland, they also had their 10 minutes with 14 men when James Ryan was sent off for 10 minutes. But I still feel that even if New Zealand had not gotten a red card, Ireland will still won this game. New Zealand also forgot their offload game. So I just saw a crazy stat after the game this morning that New Zealand, they only managed to offload once compared to Ireland's 6 offloads. So we all know New Zealand as being this expansive, beautiful champagne rugby, offloads and all those things. But in this game, the offload game was non-existent. It wasn't there. They only did it once. And obviously, the reason why it might have been like that is because they were under pressure. Ireland were very hard on defense. They were very quick off the line. So all those things, it's very difficult to offload when you have a team in your face, when you have a team hard on the defensive line. So you could actually forgive New Zealand for doing that, for abandoning the offload game. But hey, that's the way you have to play against New Zealand. You have to be in their faces, you have to be fast off your line. You can't give those guys space, you can't get your defense must be on point. And Ireland, they managed to have the defense on point today. I think New Zealand, their physicality wasn't the same like last week as well. The way to handle Ireland is to actually hit them at the breakdown, to hit them physically at the breakdown, because that will cause them to come in narrower. So at the moment, the way Ireland defended, they were all out wide, they were all spread out. And with New Zealand, they thrive when they have space on the flanks of the field. They failed to bring Ireland in narrower because they couldn't dominate the breakdown. They couldn't bring Ireland in to the tight spaces around the breakdown. So, and I think that was on part of the lack of physicality. I think New Zealand, they just tried to play an individual game. There was no cohesiveness today in this game. And that, in my opinion, was part of the downfall of this All Black team. But I think Mr. Foster is in trouble. It's very difficult to see this New Zealand team winning next year's World Cup. I would judge them on their tour to South Africa later in the year, in August, September, to see how they do against the Springboks in South Africa for those 2 test matches. But at this current moment, it's very difficult seeing New Zealand winning the next World Cup. But hey, everybody said in 2018 South Africa will not win the 2019 World Cup, and what happened. So it's all up for grabs. I think in the next World Cup we've got South Africa, New Zealand, Ireland, France, and England. 5 teams that can win the next World Cup. Australia is there. Australia is also there a little bit, but I don't think the Australian team at this moment is at that point. Maybe for the next World Cup they'll be at their peak. But I see 5 teams at this current moment in the cycle that can win next year's World Cup. So guys, I think the third and final test will be a 50-50 affair. It will be very difficult for pundits to give an exact favourite. Ireland, they showed they have the ability to beat New Zealand in New Zealand. So the third test will be very interesting. As we speak, as I made this video, England just won Australia. So that series is also 1-1. So the third and final test will be very interesting. South Africa is playing later. South Africa made 14 changes. And Wales, I would say Wales should win the Springboks in the second test. But man, that Springbok team looks very, very, very interesting, very dangerous. But guys, I want to hear from you. Irish supporters, you guys are probably celebrating now. New Zealand supporters, I feel it with you guys. It's not easy losing against the Northern Hemisphere teams on your home soil, but it is what it is. Okay, it makes the whole rugby world exciting to see New Zealand lose in New Zealand a couple of times. So guys, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, just hit the like button. And I'll catch you guys on my next video.